I'm not really a film critic, I'm just some guy who likes movies. So if you disagree with any of these rankings, then you should get mad. The healthy response to a random person on the internet disagreeing with you about something is to get angry. That is how you should live your life. First up is Gladiator 2, because I just watched this movie the other day, and I looked into the online reviews of this movie beforehand, and I saw a lot of very mixed reviews. A lot of people apparently really didn't like this movie. I saw a lot of very scathing criticisms, and even the more positive reviews were still kind of mixed on the movie. However, every single person I talked to in real life about Gladiator 2, they absolutely loved this movie. I had multiple people telling me, you have to go watch Gladiator 2. It's amazing. So I didn't really know what to expect going into this movie. Do I trust the online critics and YouTubers who were giving mixed reviews of this movie? Or do I trust the people I know in real life who were telling me that this movie was amazing? So I watched the movie, and I guess I ended up sort of in between those two responses. Like, on the one hand, I definitely understand and agree with a lot of the criticisms I saw against this movie. The main ones being how it kind of cheaply retconned the ending of the first Gladiator movie, which, by the way, I absolutely love the first Gladiator movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah, I wasn't exactly thrilled with them kind of undercutting the ending of that movie. And the other main criticisms I've seen of this movie mostly boil down to this kind of being a standard Hollywood sequel where they kind of just rehash the original movie but do it in a much worse way. And there's a number of other issues that you could point out with this movie, like the fact that it's kind of messy, that the writing isn't always on point. But even with all of those issues, I still actually had a really good time watching this movie in the theaters. And it might be one of those cases where, you know how like when you go to the theaters with a group of people and then you come out of the theaters and all the people you watch the movie with are just radiating joy about how great this movie was, how awesome it was, how they had such a great time watching it. And there's sort of like this herd mentality thing that kind of kicks in where the positivity of the people who you watch the movie with kind of rubs off on you a little bit, and it makes you in hindsight like the movie more than you might have otherwise. I don't know if that happened to me, but all of the people I watched the movie with absolutely loved it and they were raving about it, and it did kind of make me appreciate the movie a little bit more afterwards. But even during the movie, while I was just sitting in the theaters watching it, I was immersed into the movie. I was having a really good time with it. I never got bored, and I was also very impressed with the way that they were able to recreate Rome. Like, whenever I watch a movie like this, I'm just thinking, like, how do they do this? Like, it is so cool the way that they can just recreate these fantastic settings. And I'm not saying that it's perfect. Some of the CGI didn't necessarily look that great. Obviously, these movies are not very historically accurate, which I honestly don't really care at all. I view the Gladiator movies as more so being like these mythical adventure stories that just happen to take place in Rome. I ended up having a really good time watching this movie. Definitely not as good as the first Gladiator movie, but I think it's fine. I think it's a pretty good movie. I'm going to put it in the good movie category. All right, so the next movies I'm going to talk about are Barbie and Oppenheimer, because I guess those are kind of the most culturally significant movies of the 2020s so far. And starting off with Barbie, there's a lot of things that I don't really like about Barbie. The number one thing that really grinded my gears about this movie is some of the dialogue felt like they were scrolling through Twitter, were looking for the most brain rot comments they could possibly find, and then they just copied and pasted that and put it directly into the script. If you've seen the movie, you definitely know what I'm talking about, right? Like that America Ferrera monologue. I think the monologue was supposed to be like this really deep and thought-provoking monologue, and it was sort of like the thesis statement of the movie in a way. But yeah, it was just really bad. It was the worst scene in the entire movie for sure. And on top of that, this is more of a personal preference thing, but the entire movie is more or less a social commentary about gender, right? About masculinity and femininity. And I just personally don't fucking care about gender. And I'm not saying it's not an important issue. I know a lot of people are very passionate about gender. It seems to be like all the rage. That's what all the kids these days are talking about. I just don't care. I just don't find it to be an interesting subject at all. And look, it's a Barbie movie, right? So if you're going to make a Barbie movie that is also a social commentary. Like, obviously it's going to be about gender. That kind of just goes with the territory of Barbie. And again, not saying that it's a bad thing. I know a lot of people really care about that topic. I just personally find it very uninteresting. So yeah, the entire social commentary aspect of this movie, I'm not saying it was bad or that I necessarily disagreed with anything that the movie was saying. It's just that I found it uninteresting. But with all that being said, I still love Barbie. Even setting aside all of those issues that I might have with the movie, it's still so fun to watch. I have seen Barbie 4 times, and in all fairness, I wasn't the one who chose the movie all of those 4 times. Like, I didn't just go out of my way to watch Barbie 4 times. There was 3 out of those 4 times where someone else picked the movie and I just went along with it. But even with that, I still enjoyed it all 4 times I watched the movie, and that's pretty rare for a movie to be that rewatchable. I think it's a testament to just how enjoyable of a movie it is. It's just entertaining, it's funny. So I'm gonna put Barbie in the good movie tier. And then next up, I'm gonna be talking about Oppenheimer, which is one of the greatest cinematic Wikipedia articles of all time. And I'm not even saying that in a negative way. Like, yeah, the movie is kind of sort of a Wikipedia article about Oppenheimer, but it's told in a very cinematic, entertaining way that I personally found extremely engaging, and it even was pretty emotionally resonant for me. I think this is one of Christopher Nolan's best movies, and that is saying a lot because I love Christopher Nolan. I know a lot of people like to criticize Christopher Nolan, and when I say a lot of people, I'm really just referring to a vocal minority of hipster type of people online. They don't really represent the general population, I would say. In reality, most people love Christopher Nolan. The dude is basically a national treasure, and I think Oppenheimer is one of his best movies. And even though the movie does cover a pretty interesting subject, let's be honest, a biopic about a physicist, that's a really difficult thing to actually turn into an entertaining movie. And I think it speaks volumes to how good Christopher Nolan is at making blockbuster movies, that he can turn this biopic about a physicist into this really entertaining blockbuster movie. I love it. I'm gonna put Oppenheimer into the future classics tier. And then next up we have the Dune movies, and full disclosure, I am a Dune super fan. I absolutely love the books. I think that Frank Herbert is a genius. I particularly resonate with the themes about charismatic leaders, hero worship, fanaticism, all of that stuff. And obviously, like, the world building, the setting, the characters, the story, it's all incredible. And I think that Denis Villeneuve did pretty much a perfect job of adapting the first Dune book. I know a lot of people actually did have issues with Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of the book because he did change a lot of things, but I'm of the belief that if you're ever adapting a book into a movie, then it is necessary to sometimes make some changes, because what works in a book might not work in a movie and vice versa. And I think that all the changes that Denis Villeneuve made were to the benefit of the movie. And without a doubt in my mind, the Dune movies are in the Hall of Fame for me. I'm kind of just considering it as one movie. I definitely do think that Dune Part 2 is better than Part 1 for sure, but I kind of just view it as one big movie, and I think that they're absolutely incredible. And then next up is Avatar: The Way of Water, and for some reason, the Avatar movies just get an endless amount of hate on the internet, and I don't really understand why. I mean, I do kind of understand it because, yeah, I mean, the writing is not great, the storytelling is not amazing, but like, I don't know, are these the same people who love Marvel movies, but then like talk about how Avatar has no cultural impact, it's so poorly written, blah, blah, blah? It's like, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's like, is it really that much different than like a Marvel movie or something? Like, I don't know. At least the Avatar movies look really good. If we're just talking about going to the cinema and watching this great spectacle on the big screen, Avatar is so perfect for that. I mean, yes, I am not gonna go watch Avatar on a TV. Like, it's probably just not gonna translate well to that medium, but in the theaters, like, come on, Avatar is such a good theatrical experience. I really enjoy the Avatar movies. I mean, yeah, they're not masterpieces by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, James Cameron is insanely talented at what he does. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't have a great time watching Avatar: The Way of Water in theaters. I had a really good time watching it. The movie looks insane. I love Pandora. I love the setting. And I don't know, The story, yes, it's very cheesy, very cliche, but I don't know, it is kind of a cool little story about saving the whales. It wasn't that bad. So I'm going to put Avatar in the good movie tier. And next up, I'm going to be talking about Alex Garland's Civil War. And I remember at the time that this movie came out, there was a lot of people criticizing this movie saying, oh, this movie is cowardly, it doesn't pick a side, like this movie is apolitical. But it's like, did you want this movie to just be a movie where my team is good, your team is bad? Like, why would you make a movie about that? To me, one of the main points of the movie was about tribalism and fanaticism and how this polarized political environment is essentially just a race to the bottom. And I mean, I'm not saying that's like the deepest theme ever. I mean, like a million people have already pointed it out, but like, I don't know, what do you want? It's a movie. I thought the movie was pretty good for what it was. Yeah, I mean, there's some things you could nitpick, like having Texas and California being teamed up together. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but like, I mean, does it really even matter though? I don't know. Like, I can understand how the lack of world building, I guess, in this movie would take you out of it. And I do kind of agree with that. But I do think overall the movie was good for what it was. It's like a road trip anti-war movie about journalism. And I don't know, I thought it was pretty good. So I'm going to put it in the good movie tier. Next up is Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. So I have never played Dungeons and Dragons in my entire life. And the first time I watched this movie, I really had no frame of reference going in. And I still thought it was a really fun and enjoyable movie for what it was. I thought it was funny. I liked the cast. I liked the overall adventure to it. Not a masterpiece by any means, but to me, it was like a better version of a Marvel movie. But a little bit after this movie came out, I played the game Baldur's Gate 3, which at this point I would say now is probably my favorite video game of all time. And so after playing Baldur's Gate 3, which if you're not familiar with that, it's basically a Dungeons and Dragons video game. And after playing that game and now being more familiar with the world and the lore around Dungeons and Dragons, I rewatched this movie and it just made it all that much better. I think this is a really fun movie. Again, it's not a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm going to say it is a good movie. Like, I had a really good time watching Dungeons and Dragons. And then next up is Challengers, and this is easily in the Hall of Fame for me. I love Challengers. I think Challengers is such a great movie. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, in my opinion, are the best film composers in the industry today. The music in Challengers goes so hard. It absolutely elevates this movie. Like, if it wasn't for Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, I would say Challengers would probably just be like in the good movie category, maybe future classic. But because the music is so amazing in this movie, like, it instantly elevates it up to the Hall of Fame tier for me. And it's not even just the music. Like, the movie is great in pretty much all the other aspects, like the acting performances, the writing, the directing, the cinematography. Everything about this movie is just such an amazing cinematic experience to watch. You'd think that a love triangle tennis movie would be kind of lame. Like, I don't really like sports movies. It's one of my least favorite genres of movies. And I don't even really like tennis that much. Like, I think it's really fun to play, but I can't really sit through and watch an entire tennis match on TV. But even without being a tennis fan, like, Challengers makes tennis awesome. Like, it's so fun to watch. And I don't know, maybe if I was more of a tennis fan, I would like this movie less because, I don't know, maybe the movie didn't do a great job of accurately depicting tennis, but I don't really care. I just thought the movie was an amazing drama. And then next up is John Wick 4. I love the John Wick movies. They're very simple, but they look beautiful. They have great choreography, and they are pretty much ideal action movies in my opinion. And John Wick 4, the only real issue I had with it is maybe the movie is a little bit too long, but I'm willing to let that slide because the action set pieces in this are so fun to watch. The cinematography and lighting in this movie is on point. It's way better than almost any other action movie I've seen. And the movie has Rina Sawayama in it. And if you're not familiar with her, she is a pop singer who makes some really good music. And I thought it was really cool that she was in this movie. So I'm going to put John Wick 4 in the top of the good movie tier. And so from here on out, I'm going to kind of rapid fire through these movies because otherwise I'll just be here all day. And so The Batman, I know a lot of people love this movie, but I just can't really get into it. I don't think it's a bad movie, but to me, it's just okay. So I'm going to put it in the okay tier. Sorry, Batman fans. Okay, and then we have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I love Planet of the Apes. I'm probably one of the biggest Planet of the Apes fans you'll find. I love the original 1968 Planet of the Apes. I love the Caesar trilogy. So I am the very target audience for this movie. I should love a Planet of the Apes movie. It doesn't take a lot to get me to like a movie about apes that have started to enter the Stone Age. Like, I just love that idea. But oh, this movie was a snoozer. Like, I'm just gonna even put it in F tier. Like, I mean, it's not even that it was a terrible movie, but it was just boring. And for me, that is the worst thing a movie can be, is boring. All right, and then next up we have Shiva Baby, which if you haven't seen that, it's a comedy movie starring Rachel Sennett. And this movie is great. It's really funny. Rachel Sennett is great. I'm going to put Shiva Baby in the good movie category. I thought it was really good. And then next up we have Everything Everywhere All at Once. I know that everyone loves this movie, that it won Best Picture. I mean, yeah, it's a great movie if you ask most people, but I don't know, like, I did like the movie. I'm not saying I didn't like it, but I'm just not super into, I guess you would call it, the millennial writing in this movie, like the everything bagel and like sausage fingers and stuff like that. I still think Everything Everywhere All at Once is a good movie, but I don't know. I know most people would probably put it in like the future classics or the Hall of Fame tier. And like, I don't know, it was almost there for me, but like some of the quirky like type of writing in this movie just kind of knocks it down a peg in my book. And then we have Top Gun Maverick, another movie that everyone loves. Everyone thinks it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. I thought it was good. I mean, it was fine. I don't know. I'm gonna put it in the good movie tier. I don't really have any complaints about this movie, and I had a good time watching it, but I don't know. It's not like the most mind-blowing thing I've ever seen. Like apparently everyone thought it was. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but yeah, I just thought Top Gun Maverick was like pretty good, but I don't know, didn't blow my mind or anything like that. And then we have Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, look, I'm just not really a Marvel person. I'm not really like a superhero person. It's not that I don't like them. It's just that it takes a lot for me to get into one of those movies. I don't know why. I'm just like not that into the superhero setting. So I don't know. I'm going to put Spider-Man No Way Home in the okay tier. It wasn't bad. I mean, it was okay. I had a decent time watching the movies. I probably never really want to rewatch that movie. So I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about it. It was just like, yeah, it's okay. It's a Marvel movie. And then we have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And yeah, even though I'm not really a superhero person, you gotta just respect the animation quality in these movies. Like, it's just absolutely insane. These movies look incredible. I'm also not even really an animation person, but like, I don't know how you could watch Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and not be incredibly impressed with the visuals and the animation. So I mean, I'm going to put this into future classics. And next up, we have Saltburn, a movie that a lot of people hate. A lot of people like to dunk on Saltburn. And I totally get why, because the movie is really stupid. But I don't know. I like Saltburn. I thought it's fun to watch. Yes, the movie is very stupid and also very predictable, but I don't know. I just love the aesthetics of this movie. I love that combination of like gothic architecture mixed with 2000s pop music with a little bit of classical music thrown in there. Like I just love the vibes of this movie. So for me, Saltburn goes into the good movie tier, even though it is a dumb movie and there's so much you could just pick apart with this movie, but I don't know. It's fun. And then next up we have Poor Things, and this movie has so much going for it, right? Like some of the best acting performances of the 2020s, incredible production design and visuals and costumes and all that. Everything about this movie from a filmmaking perspective is so well executed and on point. But I don't know, even though this movie was very funny at times, it just wasn't really that pleasant of an experience for me to watch. And I don't think the movie was meant to be pleasant. Like the movie is meant to be unpleasant, but I don't know, like the movie was just a little bit too gross for my liking, and I'm not someone who's easily grossed out by movies. I normally have a very high tolerance for like gore and like body horror and like gross stuff, but I don't know, Poor Things, it just felt like it was too much. It was just too much. I think that they flopped a little bit when it came to the messaging and themes of this movie, but I'm still gonna put Poor Things into the good movie category. And then the next one up is Sanctuary, which if you haven't heard of that movie, it's a movie about Margaret Qualley playing a dominatrix, and Margaret Qualley playing a dominatrix, that was pretty much enough to sell me on watching this movie. And yeah, it was pretty good. It's like one of those chamber piece movies that takes place almost entirely in one room. The writing wasn't the best writing I've ever seen, but it was good enough to carry a movie that almost entirely takes place in one room. So I don't know, I thought it was pretty good. I'm gonna put it in the good movie tier. And then next up is Deadpool and Wolverine, and I'm sorry to the Deadpool fans and the Marvel fans, but I didn't like this movie. I'm gonna put it in the F tier. I understand that the vast majority of people like Deadpool and Wolverine. That's totally fair, but I don't know. I already made a movie review on Deadpool and Wolverine where I talked about why I didn't like it. And maybe it was just that I was in the wrong mood when I watched this movie, but I don't know. I just didn't like Deadpool and Wolverine. Didn't really work on me. I'm sorry. And then next up is American Fiction, which in my opinion, they had enough really great material to make a very good 30-minute short film. But the problem with this movie is they stretched it out to like 2 hours, and pretty much everything that wasn't in like the comedy satire department was like this very boring, melodramatic, kind of semi-depressing drama. And I don't know, I wasn't really interested in any of that stuff in this movie. So even though some of the satire was really good, the rest of the movie just fell flat for me, so I'm gonna put this in the okay tier. And then next up we have Alien Romulus, which this is another movie that kind of suffers from Hollywood sequelitis in a little bit. It's kind of like a greatest hits album of the Alien movies, but I love Alien movies. I love xenomorphs, and I thought this movie was really well directed, had really great sound design, and I don't know, it's just such an immersive Alien movie. I had a great time watching it. So for me, Alien Romulus goes into the good movie tier. And then next up is Anyone But You. One of those movies where I wasn't the person who decided to watch this movie, but you know how sometimes like you can't always be the person who picks the movie to watch. Sometimes you just gotta let other people pick the movie and you just gotta sit through it. And that was the case for Anyone But You. This movie sucked, and I really like rom-coms, all right? I'm not against rom-coms, but this one just wasn't it. So I'm gonna put this in the F tier. All right, and then next up we have Banshees of Inisherin, which a lot of people really love this movie, and I liked it. I thought it was good. I thought it was really funny at certain parts, but I don't know, there's just something about those types of movies where they have like this really melancholy kind of semi-depressing vibe. Like that's just not really the type of movie that I usually like to watch. So while Banshees of Inisherin had a lot of great moments and funny scenes, the movie as a whole didn't quite hit as hard for me as it did for a lot of other people. But I'm still going to put it in the good movie tier because I thought it was good. It just wasn't like a future classic like most people seem to think it is, but hey, that's just my opinion. And then next up is Bodies, 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 which is kind of like a mystery thriller that makes fun of Gen Z. And I mean, I thought the movie was okay up until the ending, and then the ending was really good in my opinion. I thought the ending was amazing actually. So it kind of elevated the rest of the movie for me. So I'm going to put that into the good movie tier. All right, and then next up is The Boys in the Boat. This is a movie I probably never would have watched, but last Christmas over the holidays, my mom really wanted to watch this movie, so I decided to watch this movie with her, and I don't know, I didn't really like it. It was a very cliche sports movie, and like, if you've ever seen any sports movie before, you pretty much know exactly what's going to happen in Boys in the Boat. It's just a very dull and bland movie. I'm going to rank this as an F tier. Didn't really like it at all. All right, and then the next up is the movie Damsel, which, I mean, I would guess that most people don't even remember that this movie exists. It's what's her name, the girl from Stranger Things is like the main character, and it's like this fantasy movie. I don't even like, I saw it a few months ago and I like barely even remember anything about it. It was just like the definition of a Netflix slot movie, so I'm gonna put this in F tier. All right, and the next up is the movie Don't Look Up. Just a very pandering, kind of like pointless movie. It feels like an SNL skit dragged on for like 2 hours. So I don't know. I'm going to put Don't Look Up into the F tier. And the next up is the movie Dream Scenario. It's a Nicolas Cage movie where everyone in the world starts to see Nicolas Cage in their dreams. And I don't really remember that much about this movie. Don't really have that much to say about it, but I do remember liking it, thinking it was pretty good. So I don't know. It's in the good movie tier. All right, and then next up we have Eurovision with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams. Don't even really remember that much about this movie. I thought it was just okay. It was watchable. It wasn't like an unwatchable movie, in my opinion. It just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. So I'm going to put this in the okay tier. And then we have Killers of the Flower Moon, which this is probably the best modern Scorsese movie. And yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon is really good. It's still got that Scorsese magic to it. It's a little bit too long though, all right? It was a little bit too long. At a certain point, I was like ready for this movie to be over, and then it just kept going and going and going. But obviously, it's still a really great movie. Another issue I kind of had with this movie is that they didn't really explain the perspective of the Osage people very well. Like, it kind of made the entire movie from the perspective of Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro's characters. even though Lily Gladstone gave the best performance, but I don't know. I just felt like they kind of underdeveloped the Osage characters in this movie, but I mean, it was still a really good movie. It was just a little bit too long, so I want to put this in the good movie category. All right, and then next up is Glass Onion. This movie was really fun and enjoyable until about like the second half of the movie where it starts to explain the mystery. I'm not going to spoil anything, but in my opinion, like, I don't know, I just felt like they kind of jumped the shark a little bit at a certain point. So I want to put Glass Onion in the okay tier. I thought it was fun for the first half of the movie, but then it kind of fell apart. Plus, it is kind of like one of those like generic eat the rich movies, which I don't know, those are kind of hit and miss for me. And then there's Godzilla Minus One, easily in the future classics tier. Godzilla Minus One, probably the best Godzilla movie that I've ever seen. I mean, it's been said a million times, but a Godzilla movie where you actually care about the human characters, that is a winner right there. I mean, yeah, the movie was a bit melodramatic and sentimental, but I don't know. It worked for me. I absolutely loved it. Godzilla Minus One, as good as they say, in my opinion. It's a future classic. All right, and the next one up is The Green Knight. And I just remember going to the theaters and all of the people I was with were going into this movie expecting it to be like an action movie or something like that. And the movie was not an action movie at all. I don't even know what you would call it, more like a fable or a parable or something, but barely any action in this movie. And yeah, it was a very weird movie. So all of the people that I watched the movie with were like, they hated this movie. Like all my friends were like, what is this movie? But I actually liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Like, it's not like the best movie I've ever seen, but like, I don't remember that much about it because I saw it like a very long time ago, but I do remember liking the movie, so I'm gonna put it in the good movie tier. And then we have I Care a Lot, like the most forgettable Netflix slot movie. This is F tier. Like, I pretty much remember nothing about this movie other than Rosamund Pike being in it, and I like Rosamund Pike, but didn't like this movie at all. And then next up we have Furiosa, and I love Furiosa. It's not as good as Mad Max Fury Road by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, those are some tough shoes to fill, and I thought they did a pretty great job. George Miller still got it. I'm going to put Furiosa at the top of the good movie tier. And then the next one up is The Idea of You, which is a pretty generic romantic movie about Anne Hathaway, who has a romance with this guy who's in a boy band. And the thing that I really didn't like about this movie was the actual boy band in this movie. And look, I understand that it's a movie, like it's pretty hard to create a fictional band that's going to live up to like actual artists in the music industry. So I can give them some leeway there, but I just really did not like the boy band in this. And I would be willing to let that slide. But this movie has the audacity to compare this generic boy band to the Beatles, which is like, I found it so ridiculous. And then after that, this main character who's like the front man of the boy band, he decides that he wants to go on to create better music. Okay, but then he just becomes like the most bland, generic singer-songwriter, like kind of like Ed Sheeran type of music. And look, if you're like an Ed Sheeran fan, okay, that's fair. Like, you can like whatever music you want. I personally just really don't like that type of music. So I don't know, everything about this movie just kind of annoyed me when it came to the music. And then the actual movie side of it, like, it was watchable, but I don't know, the musical aspects of this movie were so egregious that I'm going to put this into the F tier. All right, and then the next one is the Mario movie, and I absolutely love the Mario games, like Super Mario Bros. 3, one of my favorite video games of all time. But the Mario movie itself, like, it was okay. Like, I understand this is like a kids movie, and like, I'm not the target audience, even though I love Mario. Like, it's mainly meant for little kids, but I don't know. There's way better kids movies out there than the Mario movie. Like, I just thought it was okay. Like, it was fine. All right, and then there's May December. A lot of people were talking about how like this movie is so amazing. It got snubbed at the Oscars. I mean, it was good. I thought it was a good movie. Like, it wasn't like anything to write home about, in my opinion. So I don't know. I'm just going to put it in the good movie tier. And then the next one up is Megan. And a lot of people don't really like this movie. A lot of people made fun of it. And I get it. It's not really like that good of a movie or that interesting of a movie. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a good time watching this movie. So I'm going to put it in the good movie tier. Like, It's not a great movie, but it was fun to watch. So, and then the next one up is No Hard Feelings, which is that raunchy comedy with Jennifer Lawrence and then that other guy, I forget his name. And yeah, I do kind of wish they would go back to making more movies like this, like those 2000s era comedy movies, like, you know, like Step Brothers and Tropic Thunder and stuff like that. But I don't know. No Hard Feelings wasn't as good as like those classics of the genre, but I had a good time watching it. Like it's not like a perfect movie by any means. It's not even really that good of a movie, but it was enjoyable enough that I'm willing to put it into the good movie tier just because I had a good time watching it. And like that's really all I care about. Like a movie doesn't have to be a groundbreaking masterpiece. If I have a good time watching it, then that's good enough for me. And then we have David Fincher's The Killer. I love David Fincher. He's one of my favorite directors, but this movie was just okay in my opinion. Like it was watchable, it was fine, but I don't know, it was kind of forgettable. I don't really have a lot to say about it. It was just okay. And then we have Nope by Jordan Peele, and I love Jordan Peele. I love Key and Peele, and I think Get Out is a really great movie, but I don't know. I just haven't been that into Jordan Peele's movies since Get Out, and I know he is a very talented director, and I'm still very excited to see what he does in the future, but Us and Nope, like, I don't know, it just didn't really do it for me. I know a lot of people love Nope, but like, and I thought it was fine. Like, I didn't think it was bad by any means, but like, I don't know, it just, there was something off about it. It was just missing something for me. I'm gonna put it into the okay tier. And then next up is Roadhouse remake, and yeah, this was just okay. Like again, it was fine, it was watchable, but like it didn't have the magic of the first Roadhouse movie. Like that movie was hilarious because of stuff like Pain Don't Hurt. The new Roadhouse movie was fine. Like Jake Gyllenhaal was good, Conor McGregor was kind of annoying, but like I don't know, it just felt like a lesser watered down version of the original. So I don't know. I was just gonna put it in the okay tier because it was fine for what it was, but it's not a movie I'm ever gonna rewatch. And then we have Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and for me, this is a future classic. Like Puss in Boots and The Last Wish is so good. Like for like being a Shrek spin-off movie, like you wouldn't expect it to be as good as it was. It's similar to Across the Spider-Verse in terms of the animation, like, and it's very, very good animation. But yeah, I don't know. I think Puss in Boots is right up there with like Shrek and Shrek 2. Like it's just a great fun movie. And then there's Rebel Moon, which I mean, yeah, it's Rebel Moon. I'm sorry to the Zack Snyder fans. Everyone was right about this movie. It's horrible. It's a terrible movie. I don't even know why I watched it. I pretty much just watched it out of curiosity to see, is it really as bad as everyone is saying? And the answer is yes, it is that bad. And then there's the movie Tar, which is a movie that everyone was acclaiming it and praising it as this great movie. And it is incredibly well made. And it has like one particular really good scene where Kate Blanchett character owns like this like college student in the classroom. That's a great scene, but like, I don't know, as a whole, this movie is just like so boring. Like, I don't know. I'm just gonna put it in I don't want to put it in the F tier because it is like a really well-made movie and has a lot of redeeming qualities, but I'm just going to put it in the okay tier. But for how well made this movie is, this should be into like at least in the good movie tier, but like it's just, it's too long. I don't know. I was kind of bored for half of this movie. So I can't put it in the good movie tier because like, yeah, I don't know. It just wasn't a good time for me. And then we have Tenet. This movie was like an absolute mess. I'm just going to put this into the F tier. Tenet does have a lot of good qualities actually. Like Christopher Nolan, like he's so good at what he does, and like Tenet does have a lot of great qualities, but like this movie is so convoluted and difficult to understand that like it's just so hard to sit through it. I don't know. I was just so bored watching this movie, and it didn't have the redeeming qualities that Tar had to elevate it up to the okay tier. So it's an F tier for me. And then we have The Good Nurse, which is like, I don't know, just a very generic okay movie. Like it's watchable, but you know, it's nothing to write home about. You're gonna forget about it like within a few days after watching it. So yeah, it's just an okay movie in my opinion. And then we have The Menu, which like, yeah, it is like a pretty dumb Eat the Rich movie, one of those things. But I mean, like, yeah, it is a stupid movie, but I don't know. It was fun to watch. It was entertaining. You know, it made me roll my eyes a few times, but I still had a good time watching it. So I'm gonna put it in the good movie tier. And then next up, we have The Substance, which is definitely one of the best body horror movies to come out in a long time. The movie definitely does have its issues, but overall, it is just a very good movie. I wouldn't say that it's like a masterpiece like a lot of people say it is, but I'm definitely going to put it into the good movie tier. All right, and then next up, I have Where the Crawdads Sing, another one of those movies that I probably never would have watched if I was picking the movie, but again, sometimes you just got to let other people pick the movie. And yeah, Where the Crawdads Sing, it was okay. It was just like a fine, solid movie, I guess. Like, it wasn't really good, but it wasn't bad either. And I have seen a lot of memes about this movie because, like, the main character, she's like this girl who lives out in the swamp, like in the middle of nowhere. Yet somehow she has like perfect hair, perfect makeup. I mean, yeah, it's kind of silly, but like, I don't know, she looks good and it doesn't take anything away from the movie, but I don't know. It's just an okay movie. I don't know why I'm going off on that tangent. The last one up I'm doing is the movie X. I'm not even really a big slasher person. I don't usually love slasher movies, but I thought X was really good. I don't know. There's not much to say, but it's just like a really well-made slasher movie. Like, so I'm just going to put it in the good movie tier. I think if you look at this lineup of movies, it's pretty solid. Like, I understand that a lot of people think that Hollywood has gone downhill, which, I mean, it kind of has, but I don't know. I still think there's a lot of really good movies that come out. Plus, there's a lot of like great movies that are made outside of Hollywood.